For the weeks I couldn't participate, I was able to go back and hear some of the great conversation that was happening. So yes, I'm asked to speak today a bit about membership, what clubs look like, and as Bruce had indicated, we in North America for sure have began a couple of initiatives to address our membership issue. First, I want to ask if there's any guests, non-Rotarians on the call today.
And if there are, you have to mute yourself.
Keith and I are here. It's Laura.
Oh, hi, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us. So is that Laura Selsey?
It is.
My friend Laura Selsey. So Laura has been a friend of Mark and mine for a while, a business colleague and a friend. And she has wanted to join Rotary for quite a while. And so thanks to Bruce and Sue putting this on Facebook, we shared it with Laura so that she could experience what a virtual Rotary Club might look like. So I think we need to always be aware that as we're meeting these ways, we're going to get some amazing opportunities to have guests, not only from around the world, Rotarians, but non-Rotarians, and be able to have them with us. So everyone should be a little careful then of using our Rotary acronyms and really explain fully what we're talking about. So I thought it was a great opportunity to invite Laura to the call so she could just kind of understand how we are approaching North American membership or membership in general, and how Rotary clubs and the way we meet is evolving. So as we have people meeting us on our calls, I also want to stress that it's really not, even though I kind of said I wanted to introduce Laura to membership, it's really not a time to be actively out there recruiting and trying to get people to join Rotary. I think it's time for us to come together during this time of isolation so that we can continue to meet like this and hear each other and see everyone's faces. And organically, when we talk about and showcase what we're doing, I think the more people will join us after we're through this crisis. So it's about keeping in contact for sure, making new friends, sharing space, and sharing positive stories for sure. And there's a lot of ways that this is being done in inventive ways that I've seen happening in the last couple of weeks. You know, who knows what membership is going to look like on the other side of COVID, what a club is going to look like, if we have clubs, what that's going to look like, and how we meet. And before we started the meeting, there was a lot of really great conversation about some of the inventive things your clubs are doing, how you're getting more members to participate in Zoom meetings, and we're physically coming to your weekly meetings because it has become a little bit more convenient, and what that's going to look like once we're through COVID. You know, from anything bad, there has to be some good that comes, and there's opportunities around us. You know, we speak about change in Rotary, and we have a lot of really great things before us. And for those of us who have been around Rotary for a while, you know, we joke about the fact that the pace of change in Rotary, being an international organization and an organization that changes our leadership every year, the pace of change is slow to the point where we joke about it. And we also experience the resistance to change as well, because we're unable to move in a forward manner very quickly. But now we find ourselves faced with COVID and with the world we're living in today. And I feel like we're being literally slapped upside the head with change and having to be nimble and quick and finding new ways of doing things. So we're forced to be innovative. And as I said, I've seen some really, really great things, and I'm sure you have. And I'd love for you guys to share in the chat box as we're speaking today about some of the great things your clubs are doing, or some of the great things that you've seen happen online. I'll just share a few with you, and I can share the links a little bit later. But There's a Google sheet going around right now that is a listing of online clubs that are meeting, when, where, how, with the links on there. So any day of the week, if you want to join a meeting like this, and be on a meeting with people from Australia or India or Europe or the Cotswolds, you can just find the day that works for you and join their meeting and just hear about the great things that they're doing too. There's been Zumba classes online led by Rotaractors, and that is so important. You know, it's not just the meeting, it's taking care of ourselves physically and especially mentally. And I know that there's some talk about having some guest speakers all around mental health and our mental health well-being, because with isolation and the stress that we're going through, you know, unfortunately, we are going to be facing loss of life of those around us. And I know, unfortunately, we have lost some friends and family and Rotarians to COVID, and we all need support. And so it's really important to take care of ourselves and to take care of our mental health. So having some guest speakers around some of these crucial items and supports are going to be really, really crucial. So just something to think about when it comes to some of our guest speakers. This is going to be our new normal for a while, and even though we speak about COVID, we have to address it. It's also important that we spend some time not talking about COVID and not and just speaking about business, but speaking about some of the items that are really crucial to our own health is very important. So yeah, the Google Sheet was a really great inventive idea that came out of Australia actually. There's also a link. There's been some support on how to fundraise while we're online, while we're taking our meetings online. We know that it's going to be very difficult to fundraise, not only because we're going to have a loss of income, a loss of business, and we need to be very respectful that is hitting us all very hard, and support needs to be given there. But there are some really inventive ways that we can, a lot of my musician friends and we've seen artists as well, having online concerts, and we could have virtual tip jars. And so it doesn't take a lot of money. It could take a couple dollars and in virtual tip jars, and that's a different way to fundraise. And it's something that I'm sure, Bruce, you know, when you have an online club, you probably have some great ideas and great sharing as well, that you've given a lot of thought to that when you decided to charter this club or work towards chartering of this Rotary Club. We have, and it was mentioned earlier, we have the opportunity to have guest speakers who are no longer, you know, on the road as keynote speakers, TED Talk speakers, etc. Again, just having the opportunity to bring some really great speakers on a number of different topics. So again, encourage you to click on that chat box down below and start sharing some of the things that you and your clubs have been doing. In North America, as was mentioned by Bruce, we started a few initiatives early on, and I think it put us in really great shape to take some of these innovative ideas that we're forced to look at now. And one of them is a committee that was struck at the board level, and Director Jeffrey Cataract is on it. And it's called Shaping Rotary's Future, and they're doing some great innovative work where they were looking at everything in our organization, from the role of president, the role of a district governor, the role of director, and looking at our governance structure. We talk about starting new innovative club models. When President Mark talks about Grow Rotary, it's recognizing that in order for our organization to grow, we need to develop new innovative club models. And that was something that Grow Rotary was looking at as well. You know, what does a club meeting look like? Will we even have clubs? A global a global membership model, and which is kind of funny, because when you think about it, and the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because we almost are having a global model with these virtual meetings and being able to join any club around the world. So what will that look like in the future? Will we belong to one club? Will we belong to one district? And this committee was working on a lot of these thoughts and putting together a structure and a model that they were, potentially going to pilot. And it'd be really interesting to see in their next meeting how all of this has influenced and maybe even catapulted some of their thought process. So the exciting thing is that change was already occurring. The conversation was happening. There was committees working on it. I know our districts and our clubs are embracing some of this. So I think we're in a really good position to have an opportunity here to not go back to where we left off before COVID. I think we have the opportunity to, even if it's as simple as having one meeting online, where before it seemed like a monumental task. Well, we don't really understand Zoom and our members won't go for it. When we come through this, I think we're going to not only we'll be all experts in online meeting platforms, but I think that our members will be more embracing to the change that many of us were pushing before. So I think the dialogue that we'll have will be much more accepting and widely embracing. The other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is something that the North American directors were working on, and we had a symposium in Evanston in January, and that is the Innovative Club Advocates. So in North America, the directors and director-elects and nominees got together, and we identified two experts, champions from each of our zones who had a background of starting new innovative club models. So they're working directly with our Rotary coordinators and to support them, but to go out and help clubs and districts with any idea of a new club model that they might have, where they may have been hesitant to take it forward for a number of different reasons. We have a couple models that are proven to be successful, and one of them is a New Voices Club, which is RILA alumni or youth alumni, and they didn't want to join a Rotaract club. They wanted to be Rotary members, and so they meet online. They're going to do club projects, and they're going to continue the enthusiasm that we know follows a week of RILA training. And quite often we lose sight of our alumni, people that have participated in our Rotary programs. Sorry, I just used an acronym and I apologize. RILA is Rotary, go on, help me, Bruce. Rotary Leadership.
Rotary Youth Leadership Awards.
Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, and it's an amazing leadership program that we run for young people for a week, and they learn everything from public speaking to resume writing to how to do an interview, and they don't know each other before they come, and it's kind of like going to camp for a week, and they come out full of enthusiasm, but more self-confidence. To hear them speak at the end of the week is incredibly inspiring, and the transformation that we see. And then after that week, they go back to school, they go back to their jobs, and we lose sight of that alumni and that energy. And it's such a powerful program as one example. So having them join a Rotary club and establish themselves was an amazing, out of the box way to join a club. And the great thing is at this summit, we had the support of Mark Maloney, Holger Knack, our president and president-elect, as well as all the support staff at Rotary International, to break down those barriers that people resist starting these new clubs. Barriers like you have to have 20 members to charter before you charter a club, or your Rotary Club has to have the name of your city or town in it. Rotary members have to be at a certain age, or they have to meet in a certain way. So we have their commitment that all of these models will be explored and accepted. I'm sure there'll be some, tweaks that we have to make. So being ahead of that curve and having that summit in January, having these innovative advocates already out there in the field, starting the conversation, these are all the great opportunities that I think we have before us before COVID even happened. I think their work is going to become much, much easier. I think we're going to have many people reaching out to them to have them take their ideas and bring them to fruition. As we say, no idea is unattainable, or we'll work through the model once we flesh out the ideas. And I think that is an amazing opportunity for us right now where we are. So the other thing, and I'd just like to say, is one of my passions is cause-based clubs. And somebody mentioned being on and having speakers specifically on water. I think we have an opportunity here to have many more club models based on a certain passion of people. And I have many friends who want to join Rotary but don't want to join our traditional model. And I had this conversation with them about cause-based clubs. We have this lady in our club who joined Rotary, and her business was leadership development, and she decided to sell the business and move and take a sabbatical and go to Africa and interview women in rural villages on what leadership meant to them. And she's recently written a book, but her passion was empowerment of women and the leadership that women show. And, I thought to myself, well, what would a cause-based club around empowerment of women look like? And I had this conversation during the summer, actually, with a bunch of my friends who support Rotary, come to Rotary events, but keep saying Rotary's not for me. Or one of them is actually a school teacher and couldn't make the schedule. And then that school teacher, my friend Nancy, said, empowerment to women means to me being able to have the conversation with the parents of my students on how to budget and how to put nutritional meals on the table. And another person said empowerment of women means something different to them. And I quickly realized that we had, a broad spectrum of what empowerment of women means to a large group of people, and how a club supporting that initiative, both in our community on an international basis, and they all put up their hand right away and said, I would join that club. So I think we have an opportunity to take the interest of of people joining these calls, of people who are now kind of understanding some of the work that Rotary does, the power of taking it and supporting that with our foundation and grant activity, and how we can make a larger impact on the world, in many different ways of serving. So, sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat box because I've been speaking. So maybe Bruce will share some of those ideas. I just want to maybe end with a thought for us, and then we can maybe open up conversation and questions. I'm glad to take questions. As leaders, we are under pressure, not just in Rotary, but in our business and our family decisions. Not having the perfect information, as the needle is constantly changing every day when we wake up in this changing world, will mean that we will make mistakes. Self-awareness, reality checks, tolerance, and empathy for others is going to be so important. We need to boost the confidence when bad news comes in, and we need to strengthen our resolve when difficult decisions need to be made in the coming weeks and months. And I just want to end with a quote from Maya Angelou, that I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think right now, that's the most important role that we can provide to each other and our families. So I'll just end there. We have an awesome opportunity ahead of us, but first of all, we need to take care of ourselves, our family, and our mental health. So I hope that most of you are that everyone is healthy, and our impact is as small as possible, but that we are reaching out and helping those who are unfortunately impacted at this time. Thanks.
Valarie, thank you very, very much. And, you know, I guess my question, while people are kind of formulating questions that they might have or discussions that they might like to engage in, because it doesn't just have to be questions. I know Valarie likes to just engage in a dialogue with people about ideas as well. And by the way, if you want to chat it out in the chat box, that's fine. If you'd like to ask a question, what we ask you to do on this Zoom meeting is to unmute yourself. I've got two people on the phone, so I'll unmute them in a couple of minutes, and we'll give them an opportunity. But if you unmute yourself, and then when I see you unmuted, I'll call on you. But my question is, the directors obviously are going to be having meetings and have had meetings virtually. What kinds of things are they discussing? I assume that the discussions have drastically changed or will over the next few weeks and months to what post-COVID-19 or even in the midst of COVID-19 looks like. What can you share a little bit about how those discussions have gone and what they're focusing on and what they're thinking?
Sure. So we were scheduled to have our April board meetings, and unfortunately we are not. We will be holding those online. It was a very difficult decision for President Mark and the board to make the decision to cancel Honolulu, and you know, they took advice from our partners at the WHO and the CDC, specifically. Mark was speaking to Bruce Aylward, who we all know through our relationship in the past with our polio eradication efforts. They were able to use a platform that actually had translation, as you would realize would be an issue, and that's the platform we're going to be using for our board meetings in April as well. The agenda obviously is a changed agenda from our original discussions that we were going to be having. One of the discussions we were going to be doing as well was to have some, you know, a lot more work around shaping Rotary's future and what that might look like. And so we're going to have to be a little bit more creative on how we interact and have group discussions, as you all have been as well. So we have also a WhatsApp group that we use to handle any immediate decisions that have to be occurring, and we have taken our Grow Rotary North American director conversation online, and we continue to meet every month. So there's a lot of Zoom meetings happening as well, and you know, it's as you say, our calendars are filled. If a situation comes up, we immediately react and we get online with each other. But we will be having our April board meeting online in the next couple of weeks.
Great, thank you, Valarie. Marty has a comment or question. I think, is it what you had in the chat box? Marty, go for it.
Yeah, part of it. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting, Bruce. I appreciate it. I'm the membership chair at District 7230, which is right in the epicenter here in New York City, as well as Bermuda. My question is regarding what you said earlier, Valarie, at 9:09. You said now is not the time to actively recruit new members, and went on to talk about meeting together online. But I'm curious whether or not there are going to be some ideas coming from RI in the near future, particularly before the dues bills go out in May, in order to help support and sustain our existing membership. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on people who are currently unemployed or concerned about their personal finances to possibly delay or suspend their membership. Any ideas coming?
Yes, I mean, all clubs and districts have the ability to obviously make that decision at the club level. My own club has deferred dues. We will not be collecting dues. I know that conversation is happening at the international level, I don't have an answer for you. It might be something that is on the board agenda, also maybe discussed at the executive committee level. Of course, I'm backbenching board meetings at this point, but I'm not on the executive team at this time. So some of those conversations I know are happening. Everyone is very cognizant of the impact at this time. So yeah, when I said actively recruiting, I just meant, you know, we should be including people in the conversation and reaching out to people and not putting that pressure that we're looking for people to join Rotary and, oh, by the way, here's our dues. That is completely the wrong message, and I agree with you, Marty. There will be more information, I'm sure, coming out as far as support from Rotary International on dues and expenses, for sure.
Thanks, Valarie, and thanks, Marty, for that those comments. And Marty, anything particular that you can share with us that you're doing in your club and the district with being kind of at the forefront epicenter? You're at the epicenter right now. Sadly, I don't think you'll remain at the epicenter, but give us a little, you know, quick thumbnail sketch of what life is like for you guys there, and we all feel for you.
Thank you. Most people are, I'm sure most of our fellow Rotary brethren here and sisters are comfortably ensconced at home, which is the safest place to be. And generally Rotarians do fairly well. However, at the district level, I could say there's a lot of concern about getting a budget together very quickly and anticipating whether or not it needs to be an austerity budget based on membership drop off and how much. It's hard to gather that data, almost impossible. From a local club level, and here's where everyone has a part to play because Rotary is definitely a local organization and each culture and each club is different. Our local club, my local club is in Bronxville, New York in Westchester County. It's comprised of a lot of seniors, retired business executives, and we have a foundation that's somewhat robust. We've made 2 matching grants locally, one to help the displaced employees from the restaurants, people whose faces mean a lot to our members and who serve us every week at our meetings. And I personally have handed out cash to these people to help put food on their tables. Many of them live paycheck to paycheck, supporting families. The second initiative is a club collaboration that we are doing with the Harlem, New York Rotary Club. As you may or may not know, Harlem has a GoFundMe page. It's on the, it's been publicized on the Facebook of the Zone 28 and 32, as well as on the district Facebook page 7230. They're supporting people who are homebound who cannot afford food. They have people who are delivering food. They need PPE, masks, gloves, in order to protect themselves as well as the recipients of these bags and boxes of food that they're delivering. So we pledged money. We've also applied for a COVID-19 RI grant for the district. We're in the process of doing that to try and help sustain this cause as long as this may last. No one really knows. We're hoping for the best though.
Right. Well, thank you. And you know, good luck to you and all of us are kind of in the same boat with that. And you know, to Valarie's point about recruiting members, I absolutely agree with her on the distinction that this is not the time to be doing our business as usual recruitment. But, and I see Steve Alice, who's our district membership chair for District 6400 on the meeting with us this morning. But I mean, more people are on social media and Facebook and Twitter than you know ever before because frankly they have the time and they have the inclination. This is their opportunity to try and be social since we can't get together. Those are great opportunities to talk about the things that Marty just talked about that they're doing and you know bring the conversation back to here's what Rotary is and here's how it helps in our communities. And I think that that's you know, a great way to do the soft recruitment on what we are. And, you know, Laura's on the phone with us this morning. She's not a Rotarian, but she's friends with Valarie. And, you know, hopefully hearing all the different things that we're doing and are going to be doing going forward makes a difference. Noel Jackson, I think, has a comment, and then we'll go to Liz Smith. Noel is a DGE, District Governor-Elect for Laura, from District 6400, and Liz is a past district governor. So Noel, you go first.
Okay, Valarie, or anybody else, first of all, there's so many confusing challenges coming our way, and it seems like every day something new reveals itself. But I'm thinking about these, first of all, the concepts of maybe reducing dues at either the club, district, or the international level. I've heard talk about that. But people, members who decide that they're going to forego their Rotary membership, is there a way to I'll say designate them, make sure that they don't just like cut them loose and they drift out to sea forever? Can we make sure that we kind of like moor them in the harbor so that we can pull them back in? Making designation like make sure they're a friend of Rotary, or is there like a Rotary furlough that we can put them on just to make sure that we recycle them back in and keep that attachment? And before you answer that, there's one other comment I'd like to make. We have the opportunity as leaders and role models in our communities to model proper behavior relative to, and I'll call it physical distancing. And I'm going out, when I go out of the house now, I'm always wearing my face mask. And I'd like to make it a fashion statement that I'm there trying to do the right thing to protect myself and other people. So I would like to encourage other people to also do that. But Valarie, back to members and losing Rotarians.
Thanks, Noel. With social media and we are being judged in real time, what we say and what we do. And I have to say, I think we've all probably gone up and down in our thinking of this situation. I've had days where I have to stay off social media, where I'm seeing some comments from Rotarians, maybe not wearing the Rotarian umbrella, but certainly inappropriate comments that left me quite angry and quite disgusted, to be honest with you. So we always have to be very careful with what we're saying on social media. And Noel, to your point, I think this is the time to show the compassion and the humanity and to our Rotarians, our family. One of the reasons a lot of people stay in Rotary is because of the stories we hear about how they could reach out to a Rotarian anywhere around the world and know that they had their back. You lost your passport somewhere in a country that you were visiting, and you reached out to the local Rotarians who had connections, and before you know it, it was back in your hands, or the situation was handled. That is what keeps people in Rotary: our personal relationship, our compassion, and our humanity. And to answer your question, Noel, about keeping people in the wings, I think it really comes down to your personal relationship with everybody in your club, and to have that conversation about why they feel they have to leave. If they're leaving because of money, there's always things we can do to help. We should never lose Rotarians, especially through a crisis like this, because they cannot afford the dues. So I think we handle them on individual, compassionate basis, one-on-one. And I'm telling you that when we come to the other side of this, those are the relationships and the Rotarians that will be with you for life, because you've reached out as a human being, as a compassionate Rotarian, and that's our role right now. Certainly, if they can't participate because, for example, they're a health worker, they're a frontline worker, and they don't have time to meet anymore. Their job right now is the role that they're playing, and we must all support that. So certainly don't let people drift away, but I think the relationship that you have with them is really the most important, and we really need to maintain those relationships.
Great. I agree. Thank you, Valarie.
Thank you.
And thanks, Noel. Liz Smith, and then we've got David Gardner next. Liz, just tell everybody where you're from here before we start.
Hi, I am a member of the Detroit Rotary Club, and I'm presently in Troy in my home office, or landfill, as you might observe. I I just wanted to chime in on the dues question, because I think everything that has been said on that topic is very, very important. And I want to add one more thing. 100% of the revenue that Rotary International gets is our dues. And so I would imagine that we have taken a hit on canceling the convention. There will have been some costs that will, you know, have been incurred that cannot be recovered, and yet we're refunding 100% of the registration. So as we think about our dues questions, I think we all, those of us who are able to, also should keep in mind that it is our dues that keep us going forward.
Absolutely. Thanks, Liz. Yeah, it's going to be a tightrope act, that's for sure. And I agree with Valarie. It's going to be a case-by-case basis, and some people may pay more than their share, and others, you know, may be unable to. So that's going to have to be the way it works going forward. David Gardner, tell us quickly where you're from and what do you want to chat about?
I'm from the Rotary Club of Stoneham. I am a past district governor in 1718, and very involved with addiction prevention. But I posted a comment on that before. I was very involved with rebuilding the North Reading Rotary Club into a club based on addiction prevention. And it's really become a multi-community, 10-community club that we're trying to build from there. And this conversation today has kind of made me think that maybe this should become much more of a electronic club. I mean, that topic is obviously of worldwide interest. And we're dealing with mental health in that conversation as well. But on the subject of dues, the first thought I had is I talked to my club the other day, and we've been donating the meal portion of our expenses to either a senior center or seniors that are homebound. And we've talked about trying to do that with the healthcare community because they need to have that extra support as well. There are some logistics with that we have to deal with in our area, but that's an option. And then we talked about, you know, due structures and maybe giving every member an option between now and when this crisis is over of either getting their meals not charged or credited back if they've already paid for them for a particular segment of time, or allowing them to stay in the club as part of our fundraising goal, right? So we're gonna have a difficult time of raising money for our normal expenses like our scholarships. So with that, we have that ability to give people the option. And the last thing I'd like to say is we in general don't do a great job in Rotary of maintaining data on past Rotarians, Rotaractors, or even Rotarians. And I would suggest that anybody who is either on Club Runner or DACDB or some other platform, anybody who leaves your club, get them into a friends list or others list or some inactive list. And most of those programs, you can keep communicating to them. So keep those people in your communication so they know what you're doing, because when time is right for them to come back and you keep inviting them, maybe they will come back. It's easier to recruit a past customer than to find a new one. So I would just say that that's a very important focus that we should have, is communicating not just with our current members, but our past members, our past speakers lists, our community leaders, and our people who have impact in what we do in our life. So expand your communications reach, let people know what you're doing and how you're trying to get through this crisis in the support of others.
Thanks, David. Where's Stoneham, by the way? Which state?
Just north of Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay. Thank you for those of us who are geographically challenged this morning. Bala from District 6380, which is just north of Detroit, the Detroit suburbs, has a comment. Go ahead, Bala.
Thanks, Bruce, for organizing, and Valarie for your great message. I'm from the Rotary Club of Troy in Michigan, 6380, and great to see my friends from my previous district and club, Super 6400. As I mentioned earlier, our club has embarked on this virtual meetings every Wednesday, more details on the chats. But even more important, we are trying to make sure that our club has a presence in the community to address the immediate needs in this uncharted territory. We already collected funds, started two members contributing $2,500 each, 5,000, challenge the other members to join in as well. What's more important is to make sure we work with, for example, we are awaiting our district's disaster grants portion to our club. That way we can work with our local hospitals and meet their needs, as well as some of the food banks. In addition, we are helping the Rotary clubs in Lebanon 2452 to apply for a disaster grant for their ventilator and other needs as well. They'll be using their own disaster grants. And it's important to continue to have these virtual meetings at the club level and other places, but more important to get everybody to understand what we are doing and how we are being proactive in these turbulent times.
Thanks, Bala. Appreciate your comments there. Valarie, so here's something that's been on my mind quite a bit and probably on yours as well. Do you think that there will be a lasting impact at a club, district, and zone level for training events, which heretofore have almost exclusively been events that have been in-person events, and obviously the costs of doing those things are substantial by the time you do time off from work, hotel, air sometimes, or driving, or whatever it may be. There have been a handful of districts before this crisis that may have done more virtual events. Do you see that trend increasing even after we're past this? And if so, how does that affect the in-person fellowship, camaraderie, whatever of those kinds of events in your mind?
Well, thanks, Bruce. And, again, I think here we were a little ahead of the curve. I think we're going to come out a lot stronger using some of these platforms. One of the things that we have been speaking about is the relevance and the return on investment for some of the events that we've been holding, the people that we are getting out to, our district conferences, our institutes. There's a definite cost to Rotarians, but there's also, the risk to the districts to put on these events. I mean, we're not professional party planners. We're, signing $1,000 contracts that could really affect us in a negative way if we don't get the attendance. So I think for many years we've been looking at these events and trying to change it up. And there's been some really great innovative things happening out there, not necessarily completely online. We have a robust learning center at Rotary.org, and this is a time to start using that and incorporating it into some of our training events and taking things online. Bruce, you're right. The interaction and the facilitated way of having discussions is a little bit more difficult on these platforms. We can use the chat box, but it's hard. I know even this morning, I'm trying to look to the chat box and still, participate. It's very hard. So, I was joking yesterday with someone on the phone that somewhere deep in a dark bedroom, a programmer with greasy hair that hasn't come up for weeks is working diligently to try to find a new platform that is a little bit more interactive. And I hope that actually is happening because I think you're right. I think that this is going to make us all reevaluate some of the return on investments and some of the risk that we've been putting our districts and clubs at. But more important, to be respectful of people's time away from family and work and the financial aspect of going to some of our events, which are really eliminating a lot of people who are unable to have that disposable income, even without COVID around and the loss of jobs. So, Rotary, I think we're going to be really resetting that Rotary isn't all about for the wealthy or for people who can afford to join. I always say people should never be excluded from a Rotary meeting because of the cost of a meal. So this is another opportunity for us to be looking at where we're meeting and the cost of our meal. And I'm not suggesting that our social interaction isn't important. It really is. We're social creatures, and not being able to hug people right now is probably killing all of us. But I think it's going to be a really interesting reset and a reset of our priorities. I think that, we can become very consumed by technology, by our cell phones, by traveling around the world on trips. And I really I wonder where we're going to end up. And I think it's going to be very positive. I think we're going to get back to basics. We're going to get back to knowing our priorities and our kindness of individuals. And I believe that Rotary will be that platform for people to share and come back together. But as I said earlier, it's the relationships that we're building today that will determine, you know, who is in Rotary, what we look like on the other side of COVID. And I believe you're right, Bruce. I think that the training and our get-togethers will look different. And I think they had to, and I think some of that conversation was already happening.
Excellent, thank you. And there's obviously going to be a lot of people, mute the phone. It's just my mother, everybody. It's fine. I'll call her back in a moment. There are going to be a lot of people who continue to have these discussions, even when we're on the other side of this COVID-19 crisis. But it certainly is going to change the way that we're responding. There's a great little chat going on right now in the chat box that's talking about masks, which is from my quick reading while I was paying attention to what Valarie was talking about. There are a lot of clubs that are trying to make masks, get material for masks, distribute masks to people who need them, first responders and the frontline workers that need them. But in case you weren't aware, this has been batted about for the past several days in the media and amongst the government. Now the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control in the United States, are recommending that people wear masks. Now they're not recommending that they wear surgical masks or respirator masks, but that they use fabric masks of some sort, or scarves or bandanas to help keep the spread of the droplets that contain this coronavirus from going great distances, which we know that they can. So what this illustrates is that Rotary, which has not been known to be a really fast changing organization over its 115 years plus in existence, is now being forced to be fast moving, as our government's being forced to be fast moving, as are all of us. So it's going to be a challenge to work through it, but it's been fascinating for me to watch how clubs are adapting to the changes every day in all of this. Noel, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to add, wearing a face mask is also trains you to not touch your face, which is one of the main ways that you can transmit the disease to yourself. So yeah, it has several different functions to it. You talk about the droplets, but also it trains you not to be touching your face and infecting yourself.
Thanks, and Noel would know because Noel is a dentist. And can you speak for like 30 seconds, Noel, about how this has affected your practice?
Okay, well, first of all, I've been practicing for 40 years, and I have 24 employees. And about 2 weeks ago, I had to lay off 24 people, which has never happened in 40 years. And I've been having Zoom meetings. God, so many Zoom meetings. It's just driving me. I guess I'll just say I'm embracing Zoom meetings. My staff has just been kind of giddy that we've all been able to get together, even though we're apart. And even though they're laid off and receiving unemployment, which just kind of breaks my heart, we're working on staying connected and working on ideas for what the new normal is going to look like when we start up again. This will forever change the way we practice. And like, for instance, when patients come to the office, they're going to go into the parking lot waiting room, and they'll text us, and we'll text them back when we're ready for them to come into the office. Then when they come into the office, we're going to have them wash their hands and go through some other protocol, taking their temperature and so forth. So a lot of things to protect the patient and protect ourselves. So yeah, huge changes, and who knows what else the new normal is going to look like.
Yeah, thanks, Noel. And I worry about folks who are not embracers of technology when you talk about having to text and whatever, there are some, especially elderly, but not exclusively, who that's going to be a real challenge for it.
The new normal, Bruce.
Yeah, I know, but how do you bring them along? Steve Alice, the district membership chair, and I had this discussion about even Zoom meetings and getting Rotarians to who don't even understand what a Zoom is to be able to download it to a computer or a phone and then participate. But believe it or not, we've had great adoption. And these meetings that our Passport Club has, before the crisis, we were struggling to get 10 or 12 people on, and now we're in the 50 to 100 range each week. So that indicates there's a hunger for this kind of virtual fellowship. Anyway,
Yeah.
we promised. I'm sorry, I muted you. Noel, unmute yourself and finish up.
Yeah, also, I really like the idea of physical distancing rather than social distancing. I'd like, if we can start using that term, because we want to stay socially close, but stay physically distant.
Great, I appreciate that, thank you. We just have a couple more minutes, and I did promise that we had 2 people on the phone. I'm gonna unmute them in case they had anything that they wanted to add. So if you dialed in this morning, I see a 248 number and a 603 number. I have unmuted you if you want to unmute yourself, and if you don't, that's fine. But if you had anything you wanted to add to the conversation, I didn't want to leave you out. Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. And what I wanted to also add is that we had talked about not having a meeting next Saturday, but what's the sense of folks on the call? You could either in the chat box tell me. I mean, we can have a meeting next week. It's been pretty easy for me to get great top-notch speakers, both within Rotary and from outside of Rotary, like Valarie. And the past weeks we've had John Germ, a past president of Rotary, and Jennifer Jones. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to have Steve Schramm. That's not a name that most of you know. Steve is a member of the Ann Arbor, Michigan Rotary Club, but he's also the director of Michigan Public Media. They have TV, public television and radio stations throughout the state of Michigan. And I've asked Steve, who's a personal friend as well, to talk about how this crisis is affecting his business and what he sees the future of broadcasting and particular public broadcasting looking like. So that's 2 weeks from today. But let me know if you think an April 11th, day before Easter meeting is something you would like to have. And we will certainly schedule it. If anybody has any last questions, now would be the time to unmute yourself and let us know. Otherwise, I'll leave the last word to Valarie, and then we will adjourn. Valarie?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for being on the call, and I really want to thank Sue and Bruce for doing this every single week. It's we all have a lot of Zoom meetings and opportunities to be together, and so this is a particularly great group that I love to be on every Saturday morning. And I hope that everyone just remains safe and healthy. Take care of yourselves, take care of your family. And you know what, reach out to your Rotarians, because they're the most important family that we have outside of our own. And just be safe. Thank you so much. Thanks, Bruce.
All right, Valarie, thank you so much, and stay safe to you and Mark as well, and all the great work you are doing on behalf of our organization. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it looks like the votes in the chat box are to have a meeting next week, so we will do that, and I will find another great speaker to have. This meeting this morning has been recorded since Valarie reminded me to do it, and I will circulate the link shortly, both on as many of the zone sites as I can, and also on our District 6400 Passport Club Facebook group, which you are invited to go to our page and join us. Don't have to be a member. You can join our club no matter where you are in the world. That is open to you. We have been floating an idea of what our dues will be going forward, but I think that floating is changing on a regular basis, and it's going to depend on what the dues are that we have to pay to Rotary. So they will be under $200 US a year. I know that. It's just a matter of how much under that they will be. but you're invited to join us, and do that by please visiting our webpage, 6400passport.org, 6400passport.org, and I will update that site today with new meeting information and what we have going forward. So appreciate everybody's time this morning. Everyone, thank you so much for being with us. And we will see you next week. We try and do the 4-way test. It doesn't really lend itself to a Zoom meeting with 50 people on it, but I'm going to unmute everybody just for the heck of it, and everybody can just join us in the 4-way test of all the things. Say, first, is it
the truth?
Second, is it
Concern.
third, will it
Goodwill and good friendship.
Would be beneficial to all concerned.
Great week, everybody, and we will see you next week, Saturday, April 11th.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.